Canto 18. Now in his word, soul, ruminating, joyed. That blessed spirit. And I fed on mine. Tempting the sweet with bitter, she meanwhile. Who led me unto God, admonished, muse. On other thoughts, bethink thee, that near him I dwell, who recompenseth every wrong. At the sweet sounds of comfort straight I turned. And, in the saintly eyes what love was seen. I leave in silence here, nor through distrust of my words only, but that to such bliss the mind remounts not without aid. Thus much yet may I speak, that, as I gazed on her, affection found no room for other wish, while the everlasting pleasure, that did full on Beatrice shine, with second view. From her fair countenance my gladdened soul contented, vanquishing me with a beam of her soft smile, she spake, turn thee, and list. These eyes are not thy only paradise, as here we sometimes in the looks may see. Affection marked, when that its sway hath ta'en the Spirit holy. Thus the hallowed light, to whom I turned, flashing, bewrayed its will to talk yet further with me, and began on this fifth lodgment of the tree, whose life is from its top, whose fruit is ever fair, and leaf unwithering. Blessed spirits abide, that were below, ere they arrived in heaven, so mighty in renown, as every muse might grace her triumph with them. On the horns, look therefore of the cross, he, whom I name, shall there enact, as doth in summer cloud, its nimble fire. Along the cross I saw, at the repeated name of Joshua, a splendor gliding. Nor, the word was said, ere it was done, then, at the naming saw of the great Maccabee, another move. With whirling speed, and gladness was the scourge. Unto that top. The next for Charlemagne. And for the pure Orlando, to my gaze pursued, intently, as the eye pursues a falcon flying. Last, along the cross, William, and Renard, and Duke Godfrey drew my ken, and Robert Guiscard. And the soul, who spake with me among the other lights, did move away, and mix, and with the choir of heaven songsters proved his tuneful skill. To Beatrice on my right I bent, looking for intimation or by word or act, what next behoved, and did descry such mere effulgence in her eyes, such joy, it passed all former wont. And, as by sense of new delight, the man, who perseveres in good deeds doth perceive from day to day his virtue growing. I e'en thus perceived of my ascent, together with the heaven. The circuit widened, noting the increase of beauty in that wonder. Like the change in a brief moment on some maiden's cheek, which from its fairness doth discharge the weight of pudency, that stained it. Such in her. And to mine eyes so sudden was the change, through silvery whiteness of that temperate star, whose sixth orb now enfolded us. I saw, within that jovial cresset, the clear sparks of love, that reigned there, fashioned to my view our language. And as birds, from river banks arisen, now in round, now lengthened troop, array them in their flight, greeting, as seems, their new-found pastures, so, within the lights, the saintly creatures flying, sang, and made. Now D, now I, now L. Figured I, th, air. First, singing, to their notes they moved, then one. Becoming of these signs, a little while, did rest them, and were mute. O nymph divine, of Pegasean race, whose souls, which thou inspersed, makest glorious and long-lived, as they cities and realms by thee Thou with thyself. Inform me, that I may set forth the shapes. As fancy doth present them. Be thy power displayed in this brief song. The characters, vocal and consonant, were fivefold 7. In order each, as they appeared, I marked. Diligite justitium, the first. Both verb and noun all blazoned, and the extreme. Quid judicatis turam. In the M. Of the 5th word they held their station, making the star seem silver-streaked with gold. And on the summit of the M, I saw descending other lights, that rested there, singing, methinks, their bliss and primal good. Then, as at shaking of a lighted brand, sparkles innumerable on all sides rise scattered, source of augury to th unwise. Thus more than 1,000 twinkling lustres hence seemed reascending, and a higher pitch, some mounting, and some less, e'en as the sun, which kindleth them, decreed. And when each one had settled in his place, the head and neck, then saw I of an eagle, lively, graved in that streaky fire. Who painteth there? Hath none to guide him, of himself he guides. And every line and texture of the nest doth own from him the virtue, fashions it. The other bright beatitude, that seemed erewhile, with lilied crowning, well content to over-canopy the moved forth, following gently the impress of the bird. Sweet star! What glorious and thick-studded gems declared to me are justice on the earth, to be the effluence of that heaven, which thou, thyself a costly jewel, dost inlay. Therefore I pray the sovereign mind, from whom thy motion and thy virtue are begun, that he would look from whence the fog doth rise, to vitiate thy beam, so that once more he may put forth his hand gainst such as drive their traffic in that sanctuary, whose walls with miracles and martyrdoms were built. Ye host of heaven, whose glory I survey, O beg ye grace for those that are on earth, all after ill example gone astray. War once had for its instrument the sword, but now tea is made, taking the bread away, which the good Father locks from none. And thou, that writes but to cancel, think, that they, who for the vineyard, which thou wastest, died. Peter and Paul live yet, and mark thy doings. Thou hast good cause to cry, my heart so cleaves to him, that lived in solitude remote, and from the wilds was dragged to martyrdom. I wist not of the fisherman nor Paul. Canto 19. Before my sight appeared, with open wings, the beauteous image, in fruition sweet, gladdening the thronged spirits. Each did seem a little ruby, whereon so intense the sunbeam glowed that to mine eyes it came in clear refraction. And that, which next befalls me to portray, voice hath not uttered, nor hath ink written, nor in fantasy was e'er conceived. For I beheld and heard the beak discourse, and, what intention formed, of many, singly as of one express, beginning, for that I was just and piteous. I am exalted to this height of glory, the which no wish exceeds, and there on earth have I my memory left, e'en by the bad commended, while they leave its course untrod. Thus is one heat from many embers felt, as in that image many were the loves, and one the voice, that issued from them all. Whence I address them, O perennial flowers of gladness everlasting, that exhale in single breath your odors manifold. Breathe now, and let the hunger be appeased, that with great craving long hath held my soul, finding no food on earth. This well I know, that if there be in heaven a realm, that shows in faithful mirror the celestial justice, Yours without veil reflects it. Ye discern the heed, wherewith I do prepare myself to hearken. Ye the doubt that urges me with such inveterate craving. Straight I saw, like to a falcon issuing from the hood, that rears his head, and claps him with his wings, his beauty and his eagerness bewraying. So saw I move that stately sign, with praise of grace divine inwoven and high song of inexpressive joy. He, it began, who turned his compass on the world's extreme, and in that space so variously hath wrought, both openly, and in secret, in such wise, could not through all the universe display impression of his glory, that the word of his omniscience should not still remain in infinite excess, in proof whereof he first through pride supplanted, who was some of each created being, waited not for light celestial, and abortive fell, whence needs each lesser nature is but scant receptacle unto that good, which knows no limit, measured by itself alone. Therefore your sight, of omnipresent mind, a single beam, its origin must own, surpassing far its utmost potency. The ken, your world is gifted with, descends in everlasting justice as low down as I doth in the sea, which though it mark the bottom from the shore, in the wide main discerns it not, and any earthless it is, but hidden through its deepness. Light is none, save that which cometh from the pure serene of ne'er disturbed ether. For the rest, 'tis darkness all, or shadow of the flesh, or else its poison. Here confess revealed that covert which hath hidden from thy search the living justice, of the which thou madst such frequent question. For thou saidst, a man is born on Indus banks, and none is there who speaks of Christ, nor who doth read nor write, and all his inclinations and his acts, as far as human reason sees, are good, and he offendeth not in word or deed. But unbaptized he dies, and void of faith. Where is the justice that condemns him? Where his blame, if he believeth not? What then? And who art thou, that on the stool wouldst sit, to judge at distance of 1,000 miles, with the short-sighted vision of a span? To him, who subtilizes thus with me, there would assuredly be room for doubt, even to wonder, did not the safe word of Scripture hold supreme authority. O animals of clay! O spirits gross eye! The primal will, that in itself is good, hath from itself, the chief good, ne'er been moved. Justice consists in consonance with it, derivable by no created good, whose very cause depends upon its beam. As on her nest the stork, that turns about unto her young, whom lately she hath fed, while they with upward eyes do look on her. So lifted I my gaze, and bending so, the ever-blessed image waved its wings, laboring with such deep counsel, wheeling round. It warbled, and did say, as are my notes, to thee, who understands them not, such is eternal judgment unto mortal ken. Then still abiding in that ensign ranged, wherewith the Romans overawed the world, those burning splendors of the Holy Spirit took up the strain, and thus it spake again. None ever hath ascended to this realm, who hath not a believer been in Christ, either before or after the blessed limbs were nailed upon the wood. But lo! Of those who call Christ, Christ, there shall be many found in judgment, further off from him by far than such, to whom his name was never known. Christians like these the Ethiop shall condemn, when that the two assemblages shall part, one rich eternally, the other poor. What may the Persians say unto your kings? When they shall see that volume, in the which all their dispraise is written, spread to view, there amidst Albert's works shall that be read, which will give speedy motion to the pen. When Prague shall mourn her desolated realm, there shall be read the woe, that he doth work, with his adulterate money on the Seine, who by the tusk will perish, there be read the thirsting pride, that mocketh fool alike. The English and Scot, impatient of their bound, there shall be seen the Spaniard's luxury, the delicate living there of the Bohemian, who still to worth has been a willing stranger. The halter of Jerusalem shall see a unit for his virtue, for his vices, no less a mark than million. He, who guards the Isle of Fire by old Anchises honored, shall find his avarice there and cowardice, and better to denote his littleness. The writing must be letters maimed, that speak much in a narrow space. All there shall know his uncle and his brother's filthy doings, who so renowned a nation and 2 crowns have bastardized. And they, of Portugal and Norway, there shall be exposed with him. Of Ratza, who hath counterfeited ill the coin of Venice. O blessed Hungary! If thou no longer patiently abidst thy ill entreating, and, O blessed Navarre! If with thy mountainous girdle thou wouldst arm thee, in earnest of that day, e'en now are heard wailings and groans in Famagosta's streets, and Nicosia's, grudging at their beast, who keepeth even footing with the rest. Canto 20. When, disappearing, from our hemisphere, the world's enlightener vanishes, and day on all sides wasteth, suddenly the sky, erewhile irradiate only with his beam, is yet again unfolded, putting forth innumerable lights wherein one shines. Of such vicissitude in heaven I thought, as the great sign, that marshalleth the world, and the world's leaders, in the blessed beak, was silent. For that all those living lights, waxing in splendor, burst forth into songs, such as from memory glide and fall away. Sweet love, that dost apparel thee in smiles, how lustrous was thy semblance in those sparkles, which merely are from holy thoughts inspurred, after the precious and bright beaming stones, that did ingem the 6th light, ceased the chiming of their angelic bells. Methought I heard the murmuring of a river, that doth fall from rock to rock transpicuous, making known the richness of his spring-head, and as sound of cistern, at the fretboard, or of pipe, is, at the wind-hole, modulate and tunned. Thus up the neck, as it were hollow, rose that murmuring of the eagle, and forthwith voice there assumed, and thence along the beak issued in form of words, such as my heart did look for, on whose tables I inscribed them. The part in me, that sees, and bears the sun. Immortal eagles, it began, must now be noted steadfastly, 4 of the fires that figure me, those, glittering in mine eye, are chief of all the greatest. This, that shines midmost for pupil, was the same, who sang the Holy Spirit's song, and bare about the ark from town to town. Now doth he know the merit of his soul impassioned strains, by their well-fitted guerdon. Of the 5 that make the circle of the vision, he who to the beak is nearest, comforted the widow for her son. Now doth he know how dear he costeth not to follow Christ, both from experience of this pleasant life, and of its opposite. He next, who follows in the circumference, for the overarch, by true repenting slack the pace of death. Now knoweth he, that the degrees of heaven alter not, when through pious prayer below today's is made tomorrow's destiny. The other following, with the laws and me, to yield the shepherd room, passed o'er to Greece. From good intent producing evil fruit. Now knoweth he, how all the ill, derived from his well-doing, doth not helm him aught. Though it have brought destruction on the world. That, which thou sayest in the underbow, was William, whom that land bewails, which weeps for Charles and Frederick living, now he knows how well is loved and heven the righteous king, which he betokens by his radiant seeming, who in the erring world beneath would deem that Trojan Ripheus in this round was set fifth of the saintly splendors. Now he knows enough of that, which the world cannot see. The grace divine, albeit in his sight, reach not its utmost depth. Like to the lark, that warbling in the air expatiates long. Then, trilling out his last sweet melody, drops satiate with the sweetness, such appeared that image stamped by the everlasting pleasure, which fashions like itself all lovely things. I, though my doubting were as manifest as is through glass the hue that mantles it, in silence waited not, for to my lips, what things are these? Involuntary rushed, and forked a passage out, whereat I marked a sudden lightning and new revelry. The eye was kindled, and the blessed sign, no more to keep me wondering in suspense, replied, I see that thou believest these things, because I tell them, but discernst not how, so that thy knowledge waits not on thy faith, as one who knows the name of thing by rote, but is a stranger to its properties, till others' tongue reveal them. Fervent love and lively hope with violence assail the kingdom of the heavens, and overcome the will of the Most High, not in such sort as man prevails o'er man, but conquers it, because T is willing to be conquered, still, though conquered, by its mercy conquering those, in the eye who live the first and fifth. Cause thee to marvel, in that thou beholdst the region of the angels decked with them. They quitted not their bodies, as thou deemst, Gentiles but Christians, in firm-rooted faith. This of the feet in future to be pierced, that of feet nailed already to the cross, one from the barrier of the dark abyss, where never any with good will returns, came back unto his bones of lively hope. Such was the meed of lively hope, that winged the prayers sent up to God for his release, and put power into them to bend his will. The glorious Spirit, of whom I speak to thee, a little while returning to the flesh, believed in him, who had the means to help, and, in believing, nourished such a flame of holy love, that at the second death, he was made sharer in our gamesome mirth. The other, through the riches of that grace, which from so deep a fountain doth distill, as never I created saw its rising, placked all his love below on just and right. Wherefore of grace God opt in him the eye to the redemption of mankind to come, wherein believing, he endured no more the filth of paganism, and for their ways rebuked the stubborn nations. The three nymphs, whom at the right will thou beheldst advancing, were sponsors for him more than 1,000 years before baptizing. Oh, how far removed predestination is thy root from such as see not the first cause entire, and ye, O mortal men, be wary how ye judge. For we, who see our Maker, know not yet the number of the chosen, and esteem such scantiness of knowledge our delight. For all our good is in that primal good. Concentrate, and God's will and ours are one. So, by that form divine, was given to me sweet medicine to clear and strengthen sight. And, as one handling skillfully the harp, attendant on some skillful songster's voice, bids the chords vibrate, and therein the song acquires more pleasure. So, the whilst it spake, It doth remember me, that I beheld the pair of blessed luminaries move, like the accordant twinkling of two eyes, their beamy circlets, dancing to the sounds. Canto 21. Again mine eyes were fixed on Beatrice. And with mine eyes my soul, that in her looks found all contentment. Yet no smile she wore. And, did I smile, quoth she, thou wouldst be straight, like Semele when into ashes turned. For, mounting these eternal palace stairs, my beauty, which the loftier it climbs, as thou hast noted, still doth kindle more. So shines, that, were no tempering interposed, thy mortal puissance would from its rays shrink, as the leaf doth from the thunderbolt. Into the seventh splendor are we wafted, that underneath the burning lion's breast beams, in this hour, commingled with his might. Thy mind be with thine eyes, and in them mirrored the shape, which in this mirror shall be shown. Whoso can deem, how fondly I had fed my sight upon her blissful countenance, may know, when to new thoughts I chonged, what joy to do the bidding of my heavenly guide, in equal balance poising either weight within the crystal, which records the name, as its remoter circle girds the world, of that loved monarch, in whose happy reign no ill had power to harm. I saw reared up, in color like to sun-illumined gold, a ladder, which my ken pursued in vain. So lofty was the summit, down whose steps I saw the splendors in such multitude. Descending, every light in heaven, methought, was shed thence, as the rooks, at dawn of day, bestirring them to dry their feathers chill. Some speed their way afield, and homeward some, returning, cross their flight, while some abide, and wheel around their airy lodge. So seemed that glitterance, wafted on alternate wing, as upon certain stair it met, and clashed its shining, and one lingering near us, waxed so bright, that in my thought, said, the love which this betokens me, admits no doubt. Unwillingly from question I refrain. To her, by whom my silence and my speech are ordered, looking for a sign, whence she, who in the sight of him, that seeth all, saw wherefore I was silent, prompted me. Indulged the fervent wish. And I began. I am not worthy, of my own desert, that thou shouldst answer me, but for her sake, who hath vouchsafed my asking, Spirit blessed, that in thy joy art shrouded. Say the cause which bringeth thee so near, and wherefore, say, doth the sweet symphony of paradise keep silence here, pervading with such sounds of rapt devotion every lower sphere? Mortal art thou in hearing as in sight, was the reply, and what forbade the smile of Beatrice interrupts our song, only to yield thee gladness of my voice, and of the light that vests me. I thus far descend these hallowed steps, not that more love invites me, for lo, there aloft, as much or more of love is witnessed in those flames. But such my lot by charity assigned, that makes us ready servants, as thou sayest, to execute the counsel of the highest. That in this court, said I, O sacred lamp, love no compulsion needs, but follows free. Eternal providence, I well discern this harder find to deem, why of thy peers thou only to this office wert foredoomed. I had not ended, when, like rapid mill, upon its center whirled the light. And then the love, that did inhabit there, replied. Splendor eternal, piercing through these folds, its virtue to my vision knits, and thus supported, lifts me so above myself, that on the sovereign essence, which it wells from, I have the power to gaze, and hence the joy wherewith I sparkle, equaling with my blaze the keenness of my sight. But not the soul. That is in heaven most lustrous, nor the seraph. That hath his eyes most fixed on God, shall solve what thou hast asked, for in th abyss it lies. Of th everlasting statute sunk so low, that no created ken may fathom it. And, to the mortal world when thou return'st, be this reported, that none henceforth dare direct his footsteps to so dread a bourne. The mind, that here is radiant, on the earth, is wrapped in mist. Look then if she may do below, what posseth her ability, when she is ta'en to heaven. By words like these, admonished, I the question urged no more, and of the spirit humbly sued alone. Instruct me of its state, twixt either shore of Italy, nor distant from thy land. A stony ridge avaricious, in such sort. The thunder doth not lift his voice so high. They call it Catria, at whose foot a cell is sacred to the lonely eremite, for worship set apart and holy rites. A third time thus it spake, then added, there. So firmly to God's service I had heard, that with no costlier viands than the juice of olives, easily I passed the heats of summer and the winter frosts, content. In heavenward musings, rich were the returns, and fertile, which that cloister once was used to render to these heavens. Now is fallen into a waste so empty, that ere long detection must lay bare its vanity. Pietro Damiano there was I yclept Pietro the sinner, when before I dwelt beside the Adriatic, in the house of our blessed Lady, near upon my close of mortal life, through much importuning, I was constrained to wear the hat that still from bad to worse it shifted. Cephas came. He came, who was the Holy Spirit's vessel, barefoot and lean, eating their bread, as chanked at the first table modern shepherds need those who on either hand may prop and lead them. So burly are they grown, and from behind others to hoist them down the palfrey's sides, spread their broad mantles, so as both the beasts are covered with one skin. O patience, thou that look'st on this and doth endure so long. I at those accents saw the splendors down from step to step alight, and wheel, and wax, each circuiting, more beautiful. Round this they came, and stayed them, uttered them a shout so loud, it hath no likeness here, nor I wist what it spake, so deafening was the thunder. Canto 22. Astounded, to the guardian of my steps I turned me, like the chill, who always runs thither for succor, where he trusteth most. And she was like the mother, who her son, beholding pale and breathless, with her voice soothes him, and he is cheered. For thus she spake, soothing me, know'st not thou, thou art in heaven, and know'st not thou, whatever is in heaven is holy, and that nothing there is done but is done zealously and well. Deem now what change in thee the song, and what my smile had wrought, since thus the shout had power to move thee. In which couldst thou have understood their prayers? The vengeance were already known to thee, which thou must witness ere thy mortal hour. The sword of heaven is not in haste to smite, nor yet doth linger, save unto his seeming, who in desire or fear doth look for it. But elsewhere now I bid thee turn thy view, so shalt thou many a famous spirit behold. Mine eyes directing, as she willed, I saw 100 little spheres, that fairer grew by interchange of splendor. I remained as one, who fearful of o'ermuch presuming, abates in him the keenness of desire, nor dares to question, when amid those pearls One largest and most lustrous onward drew, that it might yield contentment to my wish. And from within it these the sounds I heard. If thou, like me, beheld'st the charity that burns amongst us, what thy mind conceives were uttered. But that, ere the lofty bound thou reach, expectance may not weary thee. I will make answer even to the thought which thou hast such respect of. In old days, that mountain, at whose side Casino rests, was on its height frequented by a race deceived and ill-disposed, and I it was who thither carried first the name of him who brought the soul-subliming truth to man. And such a speeding grace shone over me, that from their impious worship I reclaimed the dwellers round about, who with the world were in delusion lost. These other flames, the spirits of men contemplative, were all enlivened by that warmth, whose kindly force gives birth to flowers and fruits of holiness. Here is Macarius, Romualdo here, and here my brethren, who their steps refrained within the cloisters, and held firm their heart. I answering, thus, thy gentle words and kind, and this the cheerful semblance, I behold, not unobservant, beaming in ye all, have riced assurance in me, wakening it, full blossomed in my bosom, as a rose before the sun, when the consummate flower has spread to utmost amplitude of thee. Therefore entreat I, Father, to declare, if I may gain such favor, as to gaze upon thine image, by no covering veiled. Brother, he thus rejoined, in the last sphere, expect completion of thy lofty aim. For thereon each desire completion waits. And thereon mine, where every aim is found perfect, entire, and for fulfillment ripe. There all things are as they have ever been. For space is none to bound, nor pole divides. Our ladder reaches even to that clime. And so at giddy distance mocks thy view. Thither the patriarch Jacob saw it stretch its topmost round, when it appeared to him with angels laden. But to mount it now, none lifts his foot from earth, and hence my rule is left a profitless stain upon the leaves. The walls, for abbey reared, turned into dens. The cowls to sacks choked up with musty meal. Foul usury doth not more lift itself against God's pleasure, than that fruit which makes the hearts of monks so wanton, for whatever is in the church's keeping, all pertains to such, as sue for heaven's sweet sake, and not to those who in respect of kindred claim, or on more vile allowance. Mortal flesh is grown so dainty, good beginnings last not. From the oak's birth, unto the acorn's setting, his convent Peter founded without gold or silver, I with prayers and fasting mine, and Francis his in meek humility. And if thou note the point, whence each proceeds, then look what it hath erred to, thou shalt find the white grown murky Jordan was turned back, and a less wonder, than the refluent sea may at God's pleasure work amendment here. So saying, to his assembly back he drew, and they together clustered into one. Then all rolled upward like an eddying wind. The sweet dame beckoned me to follow them, and, by that influence only, so prevailed over my nature, that no natural motion, ascending or descending here below, had, as I mounted, with my pennon vied. So, reader, as my hope is to return unto the holy triumph, for the which I ofttimes wail my sins, and smite my breast. Thou hadst been longer drawing out and thrusting thy finger in the fire, than I was, ere the sign, that followeth Taurus, I beheld, and entered its precinct. O glorious stars! O light impregnate with exceeding virtue! To whom whatever of genius lifteth me above the vulgar, grateful I refer. With ye the parent of all mortal life. Arose and set, when I did first inhale the Tuscan air. And afterward, when grace vouchsafed me entrance to the lofty wheel that in its orb impels ye, fate decreed my passage at your clime. To you my soul devoutly sighs, for virtue even now, to meet the heart emprise that draws me on. Thou art so near the sum of blessedness, said Beatrice, that behooves thy ken. Be vigilant and clear. And, to this end, or even thou advance thee further, hence. Look downward, and contemplate, what a world already stretched under our feet there lies. So as thy heart may, in its blithest mood, present itself to the triumphal throng, which through the ethereal concave comes rejoicing. I straight obeyed. And with mine I returned through all the 7 spheres, and saw this globe so pitiful of semblance, that perforce it moved my smiles, and him in truth I hold for wisest, who esteems at least, whose thoughts elsewhere are fixed. Him worthiest call and best. I saw the daughter of Latona shine without the shadow, whereof late I deemed that dense and rare were cause. Here I sustained the visage, Hyperion, of thy son, and marked, how near him with their circle, round, move Maia and Dion. Here discerned Jove's tempering, twixt his sire and son, and hence their changes and their various aspects distinctly scanned. Nor might I not descry of all the 7, how bulky each, how swift. Nor of their several distances not learn this petty area, o'er the which we stride so fiercely, as along the eternal twins. I wound my way, appeared before me all forth from the haven stretched unto the hills. Then to the beauteous eyes mine eyes returned. Canto 23. E'en as the bird, who midst the leafy bower has, in her nest, sat darkling through the night, with her sweet brood, impatient to descry their wished looks, and to bring home their food. In the fond quest unconscious of her toil, she, of the time prevenient, on the spray that overhangs their couch, with wakeful gaze, expects the sun. Nor ever, till the dawn removeth from the east her eager ken. So stood the dame erect, and bent her glance wistfully on that region, where the sun abatteth most his speed. That, seeing her suspense and wandering, I became as one in whom desire is wakened, and the hope of somewhat new to come fills with delight. Short space ensued. I was not held, I say, long in expectance, when I saw the heathen wax more and more resplendent, and, behold, cried Beatrice, the triumphal hosts of Christ, and all the harvest reaped at length of thy ascending up these spheres. Meseemed that, while she spake her image all did burn, and in her eyes such fullness was of joy. And I am fain to pass unconstrued by, as in the calm full moon, when Trivia smiles in peerless beauty, mid-th eternal Nimbus, that paint through all its gulfs the blue profound. In bright preeminence so saw I there, o'er million lamps a sun, from whom all drew their radiance as from ours the starry train, and through the living light so lustrous glowed the substance, that my ken endured it not. O Beatrice, sweet and precious guide, who cheered me with her comfortable words against the virtue, that o'erpowereth thee, avails not to resist. Here is the might, and here the wisdom, which did open lay the path, that had been yearned for so long, betwixt the heaven and earth, like to the fire That, in a cloud imprisoned doth break out. Expansive, so that from its womb enlarged, it falleth against nature to the ground. Thus in that heaven ly banqueting my soul outgrew herself, and, in the transport lost, holds now remembrance none of what she was. Ope thou thine eyes, and mark me, thou hast seen things, that empower thee to sustain my smile. I was as one, when a forgotten dream doth come across him, and he strives in vain to shape it in his fantasy again. When as that gracious boon was proffered me, which never may be cancelled from the book, wherein the past is written. Now were all those tongues to sound, that have on sweetest milk of Polyhymnia and her sisters fed, and fattened, not with all their help to boot, unto the thousandth parcel of the truth. My song might shadow forth that saintly smile, flow merely in her saintly looks it wrought, and with such figuring of paradise, the sacred strain must leap, like one, that meets a sudden interruption to his road. But he, who thinks how ponderous the theme, and that is lain upon a mortal shoulder, may pardon, if it tremble with the burden. The track, our venturous keel must furrow, brooks no unribbed pinnace, no self-sparing pilot. Why doth my face, said Beatrice, thus enamour thee, as that thou dost not turn unto the beautiful garden, blossoming beneath the rays of Christ? Here is the rose, wherein the Word divine was made incarnate. And here the lilies, by whose odor known the way of life was followed. Prompt I heard her bidding, and encounter once again the strife of aching vision. As erewhile, through glance of sunlight, streamed through broken cloud, mine eyes a flower-besprinkled mead have seen, though veiled themselves in shade. So saw I there legions of splendors, on whom burning rays shed lightnings from above, yet saw I not the fountain whence they flowed. O gracious virtue! Thou, whose broad stamp is on them, higher up, thou didst exalt thy glory to give room to my o'erlaboured sight, when at the name of that fair flower, whom duly I invoke, both morn and eve, my soul, with all her might, collected on the goodliest ardor fixed, and, as the bright dimensions of the star, in heaven excelling, as once here on earth, were, in my eyeballs lively portrayed. Lo! From within the sky a cresset fell, circling in fashion of a diadem, and girt the star, and hovering round it wheeled. Whatever melody sounds sweetest here, and draws the spirit most unto itself, might seem a rent cloud when it grates the thunder, compared unto the sounding of that lyre, wherewith the goodliest sapphire, that inlays the floor of heaven, was crowned. Angelic love I am, who thus with hovering flight and wheel the lofty rapture from that womb inspurred, where our desire did dwell, and round thee so, Lady of heaven, will hover long as thou thy son shalt follow, and diviner joy shall from thy presence gild the highest sphere. Such close was to the circling melody. And, as it ended, all the other lights took up the strain, and echoed Mary's name. The robe, that with its regal folds enwraps the world, and with the nearer breath of God doth burn and quiver, held so far reterred its inner hem and skirting over us, that yet no glimmer of its majesty had streamed unto me, therefore were mine eyes unequal to pursue the crowned flame that rose and sought its natal seat of fire, and like to babe, that stretches forth its arms for very eagerness towards the breast, after the milk is taken, so outstretched their wavy summits all the fervent band, through zealous love to Mary, then in view there halted, and Regina Caeli sang. So sweetly, the delight hath left me never. Oh, what o'erflowing plenty is uppilled in those rich laden coffers, which below sowed the good seed, whose harvest now they keep. Here are the treasures tasted, that with tears were in the Babylonian exile won, when gold had failed them. Here in synod high of ancient council with the new convent, under the Son of Mary and of God, victorious he his mighty triumph holds, to whom the keys of glory were assigned. Canto 24. O ye, in chosen fellowship advanced to the great supper of the blessed Lamb, whereon who feeds hath every wish fulfilled, if to this man through God's grace be vouchsafed foretaste of that, which from your table falls, or ever death his fated term prescribe. Be ye not heedless of his urgent will, but may some influence of your sacred dews sprinkle him. Of the fount ye alway drink, whence flows what most he craves. Beatrice spake, and the rejoicing spirits, like to spheres, on firm set poles revolving, trailed a blaze of comet splendor. And as wheels, that wind their circles in the horologe, so work the stated rounds, that to th observant eye the first seems still, and, as it flew, the last. E'en thus their carols weaving variously, they by the measure pocked, or swift, or slow, made me to rate the riches of their joy. From that, which I did note in beauty most excelling, saw I issue forth a flame so bright, as none was left more goodly there. Round Beatrice thrice it wheeled about, with so divine a song, that fancy's ear records it not, and the pen passeth on, and leaves a blank, for that our mortal speech, nor e'en the inward shaping of the brain, hath colours fine enough to trace such folds. O saintly sister mine, thy prayer devout is with so vehement affection you are G'd. Thou dost unbind me from that beauteous sphere. Such were the accents towards my lady breathed. From that blessed ardour, soon as it was stayed, to whom she thus, O everlasting light, of him, within whose mighty grasp our Lord did leave the keys, which of this wondrous bliss he bare below. Tent this man, as thou wilt, with lighter probe or deep, touching the faith, by the which thou didst on the billows walk. If he in love, in hope, and in belief be steadfast, is not hid from thee, for thou hast there thy ken, where all things are beheld in liveliest portraiture. But since true faith has peopled this fair realm with citizens, meet is, that to exalt its glory more, thou in his audience shouldst thereof discourse, like to the bachelor, who arms himself, and speaks not, till the master have proposed the question, to approve, and not to end it. So I, in silence, armed me, while she spake, summoning up each argument to aid, as was behooveful for such questioner, and such profession, as good Christian ought. Declare thee, what is faith? Whereat I rised my forehead to the light, whence this had breathed. Then turned to Beatrice, and in her looks approval met, that from their inmost fount I should unlock the waters. May the grace that giveth me the captain of the church for confessor, said I, vouchsafe to me apt utterance for my thoughts, then added, Sire, e'en as set down by the unerring style of thy dear brother, who with thee conspurred to bring Rome in unto the way of life. Faith of things hoped is substance, and the proof of things not seen, and herein doth consist. Methinks its essence, rightly hast thou deemed, was answered, if thou well discern, why first he hath defended, substance, and then proof. The deep things, I replied, which here I scan distinctly, are below from mortal eye, so hidden, they have in belief alone. Their being, on which credence hope sublime is built, and therefore substance it intends. And inasmuch as we must needs infer from such belief our reasoning, all respect to other view excluded, hence of proof. Intention is derived. Forthwith I heard. If thus, whatever by learning men attain were understood, the sophist would want room to exercise his wit. So breathed the flame of love, then added, current is the coin thou utterst, both in weight and in alloy. But tell me, if thou hast it in thy purse, even so glittering and so round, said I not a whit missed out of its assay. Next issued from the deep embosomed splendor. Say, whence the costly jewel, on the which is founded every virtue, came to thee. The flood, I answered, from the Spirit of God, rained down upon the ancient bond and new. Here is the reasoning, that convinceth me. So feelingly, each argument beside seems blunt and forceless in comparison. Then heard I, wherefore holdest thou that each the elder proposition and the new, which so persuade thee, are the voice of heathen? The works, that followed, evidence their truth. I answered, nature did not make for these the iron hot, or on her anvil mold them. Who voucheth to thee of the works themselves? Was the reply, that they in very deed are that they purport. None hath sworn so to thee. That all the world, said I, should have been turned to Christian, and no miracle been wrought, would in itself be such a miracle. The rest were not an hundredth part so great. E'en thou wentst forth in poverty and hunger, to set the goodly plant, that from the vine it once was, now is grown unsightly bramble. That ended, through the high celestial court resounded all the spheres. Praise we one God, in song of most unearthly melody. And when that worthy thus, from branch to branch examining, had led me, that we now approached the topmost bough, he straight resumed. The grace, that holds sweet dalliance with thy soul, so far discreetly hath thy lips unclosed, that, whatsoe'er has passed them, I commend. Behooves thee to express, what thou believest. The next, and whereon thy belief hath grown. O saintly sire and spirit! I began. Who sayest that, which thou didst so believe, as to outstrip feet younger than thine own, toward the sepulchre? Thy will is here, that I the 10 hour of my creed unfold. And thou the cause of it hast likewise asked. And I reply, I in one God believe. One sole eternal Godhead, of whose love all heathen is moved, himself unmoved the while. Nor demonstration physical alone, or more intelligential and abstruse, persuades me to this faith, but from that truth it cometh to me rather, which is shed through Moses, the rapt prophets, and the Psalms, the Gospel, and that ye yourselves did write, when ye were gifted of the Holy Ghost. In 3 eternal persons I believe. Essence threefold and one, mysterious league of union absolute, which, many a time, the word of gospel lore upon my mind imprints, and from this germ, this firstling spark, the lively flame dilates, and like heaven's star, doth glitter in me, as the Master hears, well pleased, and then enfoldeth in his arms the servant, who hath joyful tidings brought, and having told the errand keeps his peace. Thus benediction uttering with song, soon as my peace I held, compassed me thrice the apostolic radiance, whose behest had opt lips, so well their answer pleased. Canto 25. If e'er the sacred poem that hath made both heaven and earth copartners in its toil, and with lean abstinence, through many a year, faded my brow, be destined to prevail, over the cruelty which bars me forth. Of the fair sheepfold, where a sleeping lamb, the wolves set on and fain had worried me. With other voice and fleece of other grain, I shall forthwith return, and, standing up, at my baptismal font, shall claim the wreath, due to the poet's temples, for I there first entered on the faith which mocketh souls, acceptable to God, and, for its sake, Peter had then circled my forehead thus. Next from the squadron, whence had issued forth the first fruit of Christ's vicars on the earth, toward us moved a light, at view whereof my Lady, full of gladness, spake to me. Lo! Lo! Behold the peer of mickle might, that makes Felicia thronged with visitants, as when the ring-dove by his mate alights, in circles each about the other wheels, and murmuring coos his fondness. Thus saw I one of the other great and glorious prince, with kindly greeting hailed, extolling both their heavenly banqueting. But when an end was to their gratulation, silent, each before me sat they down, so burning bright, I could not look upon them. Smiling then, Beatrice spake, O life in glory shrind, who didst the largest of our kingly court set down with faithful pen. Let now thy voice of hope the praises in this height resound. For thou, who figurest them in shapes, as clear as Jesus stood before thee, well canst speak them. Lift up thy head, and be thou strong in trust. For that, which hither from the mortal world arriveth, must be ripened in our beam. Such cheering accents from the second flame assured me, and mine eyes I lifted up unto the mountains that had bowed them late with over heavy burden. Sith our liege wills of his grace that thou, or ere thy death, in the most secret council with his lords, shouldst be confronted, so that having viewed the glories of our court, thou mayst therewith thyself, and all who hear, invigorate with hope, that leads to blissful end. Declare, what is that hope, how it doth flourish in thee, and whence thou hadst it. Thus proceeding still, the second light, and she, whose gentle love my soaring pennons in that lofty flight escorted, thus preventing me, rejoined. Among her sons, not one more full of hope hath the church militant, so is of him recorded in the sun, whose liberal orb enlighteneth all our tribe, and ere his term of warfare, hence permitted he is come from Egypt to Jerusalem, to see the other points, both which thou hast inquired, not for more knowledge, but that he may tell how dear thou holdst the virtue. These to him leave I, for he may answer thee with ease, and without boasting, so God give him grace, like to the scholar, practised in his task, who, willing to give proof of diligence, seconds his teacher gladly. Hope, said I, is of the joy to come a sure expectance. Effect of grace divine and merit preceding. This light from many a star visits my heart, but flowed to me the first from him, who sang the songs of the Supreme, himself supreme among his tuneful brethren. Let all hope in thee, so speak his anthem, who have known thy name, and with my faith who know not that from thee. The next, distilling from his spring, in thine epistle, fell on me the drops so plenteously, that I on others shower the influence of their dew. Willy as I spake, a lamping, as of quick and volleyed lightning, within the bosom of that mighty sheen, played tremulous. Then forth these accents breathed, love for the virtue which attended me, e'en to the palm, and issuing from the field, glows vigorous yet within me, and inspires to ask of thee, whom also it delights, What promise thou from hope in chief dost win? Both scriptures, new and ancient, I replied. Propose the mark, which even now I view. For souls beloved of God. Esaias saith, that, in their own land, each one must be clad in twofold vesture. And their proper lands this delicious life. In terms more full and clearer far, thy brother hath set forth this revelation to us, where he tells of the white raiment destined to the saints. And, as the words were ending, from above, they hope in thee, first heard we cried, whereto answered the carols all. Amidst them next, a light of so clear amplitude emergencied, that winter's month were but a single day, were such a crystal in the Cancer's sign, like as a virgin riseth up, and goes, and enters on the mazes of the dance, though gay, yet innocent of worse intent than to do fitting honor to the bride. So I beheld the new effulgence come unto the other two, who in a ring wheeled, as became their rapture, in the dance, and in the song it mingled. And the dame held on them fixed her looks, e'en as the spouse, silent and moveless. This is he, who lay upon the bosom of our pelican. This he, into whose keeping from the cross the mighty charge was given. Thus she spake. Yet therefore not the more removed her sight from marking them, or ere her words began, or when they closed. As he, who looks intent, and strives with searching ken, how he may see the sun in his eclipse, and, through desire of seeing, lesseth power of sight, so I peered on that last resplendence, while I heard, why dazzlest thou thine eyes in seeking that which here abides not? Earth my body is in earth, and shall be, with the rest, so long as till our number equal the decree of the Most High. The two that have ascended in this our blessed cloister, shine alone with the two garments. So report below, as when, for ease of labor, or to shun suspected peril at a whistle's breath, the oars, erewhile dashed frequent in the wave, all rest. The flamy circle at that voice so rested, and the mingling sound was still, which from the trinal band soft breathing rose. I turned, but ah! how trembled in my thought, when, looking at my side again to see Beatrice, I descried her not, although not distant, on the happy coast she stood. Canto 26. With dazzled eyes, whilst wondering I remained, forth of the beamy flame which dazzled me issued a breath, that in attention mute detained me. And these words it spake, "T were well that, long as till thy vision, on my form erspent, regain its virtue, with discourse thou compensate the brief delay. Say then, beginning, to what point thy soul aspires, and meanwhile rest assured, that sight in thee is but o'erpowered a space, not wholly quenched, since thy fair guide and lovely, in her look, hath potency, the like to that which dwelt in Ananias' hand. I answering thus, be to mine eyes the remedy or late, or early, at her pleasure, for they were the gates, at which she entered, and did light her never-dying fire. My wishes here are centered in this palace is the wheel, that Alpha and Omega, is to all the lessons love can read me. Yet again, the voice which had dispersed my fear, when dazzled with that excess, to converse you arged, and spake. Behooves thee sift more narrowly thy terms, and say, who levelled at this scope thy bow? Philosophy, said I, hath arguments, and this place hath authority enough t'imprint in me such love, for, of constraint good, inasmuch as we perceive the good, kindles our love, and in degree the more, as it comprises more of goodness in t. The essence then, where such advantage is, that each good, found without it, is naught else, but of his light the beam, must needs attract the soul of each one, loving, who the truth discerns, on which this proof is built. Such truth learn I from him, who shows me the first love of all intelligential substances. Eternal, from his voice I learn, whose word is truth, that of himself to Moses saith, I will make all my good before thee pass. Lastly from thee I learn, who chief proclaimst, e'en at the outset of thy heralding, in mortal ears the mystery of heaven, through human wisdom, and authority. Therewith agreeing, heard I answered, keep the choicest of thy love for God. But say, if thou yet other chords within thee feelst, that draw thee towards him, so that thou report, how many are the fangs, with which this love is grappled to thy soul. I did not miss to what intent the eagle of our Lord had pointed his demand, ye noted well, avowal, which he led to, and resumed, all grappling bonds, that knit the heart to God, confederate to make fast our clarity, the being of the world, and mine own being, the death which he endured that I should live, and that, which all the faithful hope, as I do, to the forementioned lively knowledge joined, have from the sea of ill love saved my bark, and on the coast secured it of the right. As for the leaves, that in the garden bloom, my love for them is great, as is the good, dealt by eternal hand, that tends them all. I ended, and therewith a song most sweet rang through the spheres, and, holy, 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 accordant with the rest my lady sang. And as a sleep is broken and dispersed, through sharp encounter of the nimble light, with the eye's spirit running forth to meet the ray, from membrane onto the membrane urged, and the upstart led white loaves that he sees. So, at his sudden waking, he misdeems of all around him, till assurance waits on better judgment. Thus the saintly came, drove from before mine eyes the motes away, with the resplendence of her own, that cast their brightness downward 1,000 miles below, whence I my vision, clearer shall before recovered, and, well nigh astounded, asked of a fourth light, that now with us I saw, and Beatrice, the first diving soul, that ever the first virtue framed, admires within these rays his maker, like the leaf that bows its live top till the blast is blown, by its own virtue reared then stands aloof. So I, the whilst she said, awe-stricken bowed. Then eagerness to speak emboldened me, and I began, O fruit, that wast alone mature, when first engendered, ancient father, that doubly sayest in every wedded bride, thy daughter by affinity and blood. Devoutly as I may, I pray thee hold converse with me, my will thou sayest, and I, more speedily to hear thee, tell it not. It chanceth oft some animal bewrays through the sleek veering of his furry coat, the fondness, that stirs in him and conforms his outside seeming to the cheer within. And in like guise was Adam's spirit moved to joyous mood, that through the covering shone transparent, when to pleasure me it spake, no need thy will be told, which I untold better discern, than thou whatever thing thou hold'st most certain, for that will I see in him, who is truth's mirror, and himself parhelion unto all things, and naught else. To him this wouldst thou hear, how long since God placked me high garden, from whose hounds she led me up in this ladder, steep and long, What space endured my season of delight? Whence truly sprang the wrath that banished me? And what the language, which I spake and framed? Not that I tasted of the tree, my son, was in itself the cause of that exile, but only my transgressing of the mark assigned me. There, whence at thy lady's hest the Montuan moved him, still was I debarred. This counsel, till the sun had made complete 4,300 rounds and twice his annual journey. And, through every light in his broad pathway, saw I him return. 1,000 save 70 times, the whilst I dwelt upon the earth. The language I did use was worn away, or ever Nimrod's race their unaccomplishable work began. For naught, that man inclines to, ere was lasting, left by his reason free, and variable, as is the sky that sways him. That he speaks is nature's prompting, whether thus or thus. She leaves to you, as ye do most affect it. Ere I descended into hell's abyss, El was the name on earth of the chief good, whose joy enfolds me. Eli then T was called, and so beseemeth, for, in mortals, use is as the leaf upon the bough, that goes, and other comes instead. Upon the mount, most high above the waters, all my life, both innocent and guilty, did but reach from the first hour, to that which cometh next, as the sun changes quarter, to the sixth. Canto 27. Then, glory to the Father, to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, rang aloud throughout all paradise, that with the song my spirit reeled, so passing sweet the strain. And what I saw was equal ecstasy. One universal smile it seemed of all things. Joy past compare, gladness unutterable. Imperishable life of peace and love. Exhaustless riches and unmeasured bliss. Before mine eyes stood the 4 torches lit. And that, which first had come, began to wax in brightness, and in semblance such became as Jove might be, if he and Mars were birds, and interchanged their plumes. Silence ensued through the blessed choir, by him, who here appoints vicissitude of ministry, enjoined. When thus I heard, wonder not, if my hue be changed, for, while I speak, these shalt thou see. All in like manner change with me. My place. He who usurps on earth, my place, mine. Which in the presence of the Son of God is void, the same hath made my cemetery a common sewer of puddle and of blood. The more below his triumph, who from hence malignant fell. Such color, as the sun at eve or morning, paints an adverse cloud. Then saw I sprinkled over all the sky. And as unblemished dame, who in herself secure of censure, yet at bare report of others failing, shrinks with maiden fear. So Beatrice in her semblance changed. And such eclipse in heaven methinks was seen, when the most holy suffered. Then the words proceeded, with voice, altered from itself. So clean, the semblance did not alter more. Not to this end was Christ spoused with my blood, with that of Linus, and of Cletus fed, that she might serve for purchase of base gold. But for the purchase of this happy life did Sextus, Pius, and Calixtus bleed. And Urban, they, whose doom was not without much weeping sealed. No purpose was of our that on the right hand of our successors part of the Christian people should be set, and part upon their left. Nor that the keys, which were vouchsafed me, should for ensigns serve unto the banners, that do levy war on the baptized, nor I, for sigil mark set upon sold and lying privileges, which makes me oft to bicker and turn red. In shepherd's clothing greedy wolves below Range wide o'er all the pastures. Arm of God! Why longer sleepst thou? Corsines and Gascona, prepare to quaff our blood. O good beginning! To what a vile conclusion must thou stoop? But the high providence, which did defend through Scipio the world's glory unto Rome, will not delay its succor, and thou, son, who through thy mortal weight shall yet again return below, open thy lips, nor hide what is by me not hidden. As a hood of frozen vapors streams adown the air, what time the she-goat with her ski horn touches the sun, so saw I their stream wide. The vapors, who with us had lingered late, and with glad triumph decked th ethereal cope, onward my sight their semblances pursued. So far pursued, as till the space between from its reach severed them, whereat the guide celestial, marking me no more intent on upward gazing, said, look down and see what circuit thou hast compassed. From the hour when I before had cast my view beneath, all the first region overpast I saw, which from the midmost to the boundary winds, that onward thence from Gades I beheld the unwise passage of Laertes' son, and hitherward the shore, where thou, Europa, madst thee a joyful burden, and yet more of this dim spot had seen, but that the sun, a constellation off and more, had ta'en his progress in the zodiac underneath. Then by the spirit, that doth never leave its amorous dalliance with my lady's looks, back with redoubled ardor were mine eyes led unto her, and from her radiant smiles, when as I turned me, pleasure so divine did lighten on me, that whatever bait, or art or nature in the human flesh, or in its limbed resemblance, can combine through greedy eyes to take the soul withal, were to her beauty nothing, its boon influence from the fair nest of Leda rapt me forth, and wafted on into the swiftest heaven. What place for entrance Beatrice chose I may not say, so uniform was all, liveliest and loftiest, she my secret wish divined, and with such gladness, that God's love seen from her visage shining, thus began. Here is the goal, whence motion on his race starts, motionless the center, and the rest all moved around, except the soul divine. Place in this heaven is none, the soul divine, wherein the love, which ruleth o'er its orb, is kindled, and the virtue that it sheds. One circle, light and love, enclasping it, as this doth clasp the others. And to him who draws the bound, its limit only known, measured itself by none, it doth divide motion to all, counted unto them forth, as by the fifth or half ye count forth 10. The vase, wherein time's roots are plumbed, thou sayest, look elsewhere for the leaves. O mortal lust, that canst not lift thy head above the waves, which whelm and sink thee down. The will in man bears goodly blossoms, but its ruddy promise is, by the dripping of perpetual rain, made mere abortion. Faith and innocence are met with but in babes, each taking leave, ere cheeks with down are sprinkled. He, that fasts, while yet a stammer, with his tongue let loose, gluts every food alike in every moon. One yet a babbler, loves and listens to his mother, but no sooner hath free use of speech, than he doth wish her in her grave. So suddenly doth the fair child of him, whose welcome is the morn and eve his parting, to negro blackness change her virgin white. Thou, to abate thy wonder, note that none bears rule in earth, and its frail family are therefore wanderers. Yet before the date, when through the 100th in his reckoning drops, pale January must be short aside from winter's calendar, these heathen spheres shall roar so loud, that fortune shall be fain to turn the poop, where she hath now the prow, so that the fleet run onward, and true fruit, expected long, shall crown at last the bloom. Canto 28. So she who doth in paradise my soul had drawn the veil from off our pleasant life, and barred the truth of poor mortality, when lo, as one who, in a mirror, spies the shining of a flambeau at his back, lit sudden or he deem of its approach, and turneth to resolve him, if the glass have told him true, and sees the record faithful, as note is to its meter. Even thus, I well remember, did befall to me, looking upon the beauteous eyes, whence love had made the leash to take me, as I turned, and that, which, in their circles, none who spies can miss of, in itself apparent, struck on mine. A point I saw, that darted light so sharp, no lid, unclosing, may bear up against its keenness. The least star we view from hence, had seemed a moon, set by its side, as star by side of star, and so far off, perchance, as is the halo from the light, which paints it, when most dense the vapor spreads. There wheeled about the point a circle of fire, more rapid than the motion, which first girds the world. Then, circle after circle, round, inringed each other, till the seventh reached circumference so ample, that its bow, within the span of Juno's messenger, lied scarce been held entire. Beyond the seventh followed yet other two, and every one, as more in number distant from the first, was tardier in motion, and that glowed with flame most pure, that to the sparkle of truth was nearest, as partaking most, methinks, of its reality. The guide beloved saw me in anxious thought suspense, and spake. Heaven, and all nature, hangs upon that point. The circle thereto most conjoined observe, and know, that by intenser love its course is to this swiftness winged. To whom I thus, it were enough, nor should I further seek, had I but witnessed order, in the world appointed, such as in these wheels is seen. But in the sensible world such difference is, that as each round shows more divinity, as each is wider from the center. Hence, if in this wondrous and angelic temple, that hath for confine only light and love, my wish may have completion, I must know wherefore such disagreement is between exemplar and its copy. For myself, contemplating, I fail to pierce the cause. It is no marvel, if thy fingers foiled do leave the knot untied, so hard is grown for want of tenting. Thus she said, but take, she added, if thou wish thy cure, my words, and entertain them subtly. Every orb corporeal doth proportion its extent unto the virtue through its parts diffused. The greater blessedness preserves the more. The greater is the body, if all parts share equally, the more is to preserve. Therefore the circle, whose swift course and wheels the universal frame answers to that which is supreme in knowledge and in love. Thus by the virtue, not the seeming, breadth of substance, measure, thou shalt see the heaveness, each to the intelligence that ruleth it, greater to more, and smaller unto less, suited in strict and wondrous harmony, as when the sturdy north blows from his cheek a blast, that scours the sky, forthwith our air, cleared of the rack, that hung on it before, glitters, and, with his beauties all unveiled, the firmament looks forth serene, and smiles. Such was my cheer, when Beatrice drove with clear reply the shadows back, and truth was manifested as a star in heaven. And when the words were ended, not unlike to iron in the furnace, every cirque ebullient shot forth scintillating fires, and every sparkle shivering to new blaze. In number did out-million the account, reduplicate upon the checkered board. Then heard I echoing on from choir to choir, Hosanna to the fixed point that holds, and shall forever hold them to their place, from everlasting, irremovable. Musing awhile I stood, and she, who saw, by inward meditations, thus began. In the first circles, they, whom thou beheldst, are seraphim and cherubim. Thus swift follow their hoops, in likeness to the point, near as they can, approaching. And they can. The more, the loftier their vision. Those that round them fleet, gazing the Godhead next, are thrones, in whom the first trine ends. And all are blessed, even as their sight descends deeper into the truth, wherein rest is for every mind. Thus happiness hath root in seeing, not in loving, which of sight is after growth, and of the seeing such the meed, as unto each in due degree. Grace and goodwill their measure have assigned. The other trine, that with still opening buds, in this eternal springtide blossom fair, fearless of bruising from the nightly ram, breathe up in warbled melodies threefold, hosannas blending ever, from the three transmitted hierarchy of gods. For I, rejoicing, dominations first, next then virtues, and powers the third. The next to whom are princedoms and archangels, with glad round, to tread their festal ring, and last the band angelical, disporting in their sphere. All, as they circle in their orders, look aloft, and downward with such sway prevail, that all with mutual impulse tend to God. These once a mortal view beheld, desire in Dionysius so intently wrought, that he, as I have done, rang them, and nomed their orders, marshalled in his thought. From him, dissentient, one refaced his sacred reed. But soon as in this heathen his doubting eyes were opened, Gregory at his error smilled. Nor marvel, that a denizen of earth should scan such secret truth. For he had learnt both this and much beside of these our orbs, from an eyewitness to heatheness mysteries. Canto 29. No longer than what time Latona's twins, covered of Libra and the fleecy star, together both, girding the horizon hang, in even balance from the zenith poised, till from that verge, each, changing hemisphere, part the nice level. E'en so brief a space did Beatrice's silence hold. A smile that painted on her cheek, and her fixed gaze bent on the point, at which my vision failed. When thus her words resuming she began, I speak, nor what thou wouldst inquire demand. For I have marked it, where all time and place are present, not for increase to himself of good, which may not be increased, but forth to manifest his glory by its beams, inhabiting his own eternity, beyond time's limit or what bound soe'er, to circumscribe his being, as he willed, into new natures, like unto himself, eternal love unfolded, nor before, as if in dull inaction torpid lay, for not in process of before or aft. Upon these waters moved the Spirit of God, simple and mixed, both form and substance, forth to perfect being started, like three darts shot from a bow three-corded, and as ray in crystal, glass, and amber, shines entire, e'en at the moment of its issuing. Thus did, from th eternal sovereign, beam entire his threefold operation, at one act. product coeval. Yet in order each created his due station new, those highest, who pure intelligence were made, mere power. The lowest, in the midst, bound with strict league. Intelligence and power, unsevered bond. Long tract of ages by the angels past. Ere the creating of another world. Described on Jerome's pages thou hast seen. But that what I disclose to thee is true. Those penmen, whom the Holy Spirit moved, in many a passage of their sacred book, attest, as thou by diligent search shalt find, and reason in some sort discerns the same, who scarce would grant the heathen ly ministers of their perfection void, so long a space. Thus when and where these spirits of love were made, thou know'st, and how, and knowing hast allayed thy thirst, which from the triple question rose, ere one had reckoned 20, e'en so soon. Part of the angels fell, and in their fall, confusion to your elements ensued. The others kept their station, and this task, whereon thou look'st, began with such delight, that they surceased not ever, day nor night. Their circling of that fatal lapse the cause was the cursed pride of him, whom thou hast seen, pent with the world's encumbrance. Those, whom here thou sayest, were lowly to confess themselves of his free bounty, who had made them apt for ministries so high, therefore their views were by enlightening grace and their own merit exalted, so that in their will confirmed they stand, nor feel to fall. For do not doubt, but to receive the grace, which he then vouchsafes, is meritorious, even as the soul with prompt affection welcometh the guest. Now, without further help, if with good heed, my words thy mind have treasured, thou henceforth this consistory round about mayst scan, and gaze thy fill. But since thou hast on earth heard vain disputers, reasoners in the schools, canvass the angelic nature, and dispute its powers of apprehension, memory, choice. Therefore, 'tis well thou take from me the truth, pure and without disguise, which they below, equivocating, darken and perplex. Know thou, that, from the first, these substances, rejoicing in the countenance of God, have held unceasingly their view, intent, upon the glorious vision, from the which not absent is nor hid, where then no change of newness with succession interrupts. Remembrance there needs none to gather up divided thought and images remote, so that men, thus at variance with the truth, dream, though their eyes be open. Reckless some of error, others well aware they err, to whom more guilt and shame are justly due. Each the known track of sage philosophy deserts, and has a byway of his own. So much the restless eagerness to shine, and love of singularity prevail. Yet this, offensive as it is, provokes heathen's anger less, than when the book of God is forked to yield to man's authority, or from its straightness warped, no reckoning made. What blood the sowing of it in the world has cost, what favor for himself he wins, who meekly clings to it. The aim of all is how to shine, e'en they, whose office is to preach the gospel, let the gospel sleep, and pass their own inventions off instead. One tells, how at Christ's suffering the wan moon bent back her steps, and shadowed o'er the sun with intervenient disk, as she withdrew. Another, how the light shrouded itself within its tabernacle, and left dark the Spaniard and the Indian with the Jew. Such fables Florence in her pulpit hears, bandied about more frequent than the names of Bindi and of Lappi in her streets. The sheep, meanwhile, poor witless ones, return from pasture, fed with wind, and what avails For their excuse, they do not see their harm. Christ said not to his first conventicle, "Go forth and preach impostures to the world," but gave them truth to build on, and the sound was mighty on their lips. Nor needed they, beside the gospel, other spear or shield, to aid them in their warfare for the faith. The preacher now provides himself with store of jests and jibes, and, so there be no lack of laughter, while he vents them, his big cowl distends, and he has won the meed he sought. Could but the vulgar catch a glimpse the while of that dark bird which nestles in his hood, they scarce would wait to hear the blessing said, which now the dotards hold in such esteem, that every counterfeit, who spreads abroad the hands of holy promise, finds a throng of credulous fools beneath. Saint Anthony fattens with this his swine, and others worse than swine, who diet at his lazy board, paying with unstamped metal for their fare. But, for we far have wandered, let us seek the forward path again, so as the way be shortened with the time. No mortal tongue nor thought of man hath ever reached so far, that of these natures he might count the tribes. What Daniel of their thousands hath revealed, with finite number infinite conceals. The fountain at whose source these drink their beams, with light supplies them in as many modes as there are splendors, that it shines on, each according to the virtue it conceives, differing in love and sweet affection. Look then how lofty and how huge in breadth the eternal might, which, broken and dispersed over such countless mirrors, yet remains whole in itself and one, as at the first. Canto 30. Noon's fervid hour perchance 6,000 miles from hence is distant, and the shadowy cone almost to level on our earth declines, when from the midmost of this blue abyss by turns some star is to our vision lost, and straightway as the handmaid of the sun puts forth her radiant brow, all, light by light, fade, and the spangled firmament shuts in e'en to the loveliest of the glittering throng. Thus vanished gradually from my sight the triumph which plays ever round the point that overcame me, seeming, for it did, and girt by that it girdeth. Wherefore love, with loss of other object, forked me bend mine eyes on Beatrice once again. If all, that hitherto is told of her, were in one praise concluded, were too weak to furnish out this turn. Mine eyes did look on beauty, such, as I believe in sooth, not merely to exceed our human, but that save its maker, none can to the full enjoy it. At this point o'erpowered I fail, unequal to my theme, as never bard of buskin or of sock hath failed before. For, as the sun doth to the feeblest sight, e'en so remembrance of that witching smile hath dispossessed my spirit of itself. Not from that day, when on this earth I first beheld her charms, up to that view of them, have I with song applausive ever ceased to follow, but not follow them no more. My course here bounded, as each artist's is, when it doth touch the limit of his skill. She, such as I bequeath her to the brute, of louder trump than mine, which hasteneth on, urging its arduous matter to the close. Her words resumed, in gesture and in voice, resembling one accustomed to command. Forth from the last corporeal are we come into the heaven, that is unbodied light. Light intellectual replete with love. Love of true happiness replete with joy. Joy that transcends all sweetness of delight. Here shalt thou look on either mighty host of paradise, and one in that array, which in the final judgment thou shalt see, as when the lightning, in a sudden spleen, unfolded, dashes from the blinding eyes. the visive spirits dazzled and bedimmed. So, round about me, fulminating streams of living radiance played, and left me swathed and veiled in dense impenetrable blaze. Such weal is in the love, that stills this heaven. For its own flame the torch this fitting ever. No sooner to my listening ear had come the brief assurance, than I understood. New virtue into me infest, and sight kindled afresh, with vigor to sustain excess of light, however pure. I looked, and in the likeness of a river saw light flowing, from whose amber-seeming waves flashed up effulgence, as they glided on twixt banks, on either side, painted with spring. Incredible how fair! And, from the tide, there ever and anon, outstarting, flew sparkles instinct with life, and in the fluoresce did set them, like to rubies chased in gold. Then, as if drunk with odors, plunged again into the wondrous flood, from which, as one re-entered, still another rose. The thirst of knowledge high, whereby thou art inflamed, to search the meaning of what here thou sayest. The more it warms thee, pleases me the more. But first behooves thee of this water drink, or ere that longing be allayed. So spake the day-star of mine eyes. Then thus subjoined this stream, and these, forth issuing from its gulf, and diving back, a living topaz each, with all this laughter on its bloomy shores, are but a preface, shadowy of the truth. They emblem, not that, in themselves, the things are crude. But on thy part is the defect, for that thy views not yet aspire so high. Never did babe, that had outslept his wont, rush, with such eager straining, to the milk, as I toward the water, bending me to make the better mirrors of mine eyes in the refining wave. And, as the eaves of mine eyelids did drink of it, forthwith seemed it unto me turn from length to round. Then as a troop of maskers, when they put their visors off, look other than before, the counterfeited semblance thrown aside, so into greater jubilee were changed those flowers and sparkles, and distinct I saw before me either court of heaven displacked. O prime enlightener, thou who crav'st me strength on the high triumph of thy realm to gaze, grant virtue now to utter what I kenned. There is in heaven a light, whose goodly shine makes the Creator visible to all created, that in seeing him alone have peace, and in a circle spread so far that the circumference were too loose a zone to girdle in the sun. All is one beam, reflected from the summit of the first, that moves, which being hence and vigor takes, and as some cliff, that from the bottom eyes its image mirrored in the crystal flood, as if t admire its brave appareling of verdure and of flowers, so, round about, eyeing the light, on more than million thrones, stood, eminent, whatever from our earth has to the skies returned. How wide the leaves extended to their utmost of this rose, whose lowest step embosoms such a space of ample radiance, yet, nor amplitude, nor height impeded, but my view with ease took in the full dimensions of that joy. Near or remote, what there avails, where God immediate rules, and nature, awed, suspends her sway into the yellow of the rose perennial, which in bright expansiveness lays forth its gradual blooming, redolent of praises to the never-wintering sun. As one, who fain would speak yet holds his peace, Beatrice led me. And, behold, she said, this fair assemblage, stoles of snowy white, how numberless! The city, where we dwell, behold how vast! And these are seats so thronged. Few now are wanting here. In that proud stall, on which, the crown, already o'er its state, suspended, holds thine eyes, or ere thyself mayst at the wedding sup, shall rest the soul of the great Harry, he who, by the world Augustus hailed, to Italy must come, before her day be ripe. But ye are sick, and in your tetchy wantonness as blind, as is the bantling, that of hunger dies, and drives away the nurse. Nor may it be, that he, who in the sacred forum sways, openly or in secret, shall with him accordant walk, whom God will not endure. Ith holy office long, but thrust him down to Simon Magus, where Magnus priest will sink beneath him, such will be his meed. Canto 31. In fashion, as a snow-white rose, lay then before my view the saintly multitude, which in his own blood Christ espoused. Meanwhile, that other host, that soar aloft to gaze and celebrate his glory, whom they love, hovered around, and, like a troop of bees, amid the vernal sweets alighting now, clustering, where their fragrant labor glows, flew downward to the mighty flower, or rose, from the redundant petals, streaming back unto the steadfast dwelling of their joy. Faces had they of flame, and wings of gold. The rest was whiter than the driven snow. And as they flitted down into the flower, from range to range, fanning their plumy loins, whispered the peace and ardor, which they won from that soft winnowing shadow none, the vast interposition of such numerous flight, cast, from above, upon the flower, or view, obstructed aught. For, through the universe, wherever merited, celestial light glides freely, and no obstacle prevents all there, who reign in safety and in bliss, ages long past or new, on one sole mark, their love and vision fixed. O trinal beam of individual star, that charm'st them thus, vouchsafe one glance to gild our storm below. If the grim brood, from Arctic shores that roamed, where Hellas, forever, as she wheels, sparkles a mother's fondness on her son, stood in mute wonder mid the works of Rome, when to their view the Lateran arose, in greatness more than earthly. I, who then from human to divine had passed, from time unto eternity, and out of Florence to justice and to truth, how might I choose but marvel too, twixt gladness and amaze? In sooth no will had I to utter aught, or hear. And, as a pilgrim, when he rests within the temple of his vow, looks round in breathless awe, and hopes some time to tell of all its goodly state, e'en so mine eyes coursed up and down along the living light, now low, and now aloft, and now around, visiting every step. Looks I beheld, where charity in soft persuasion sat, smiles from within and radiance from above, and in each gesture grace and honor high. So roved my ken, and its general form, all paradise surveyed, when round I turned, with purpose of my lady to inquire once more of things, that held my thought suspense, but answer found from other than I weened. For, Beatrice, when I thought to see, I saw instead a senior, at my side, robbed, as the rest, in glory. Joy benign glowed in his eye, and o'er his cheek diffused with gestures such as spake a father's love. And, whither is she vanished? Straight I asked. By Beatrice summoned, he replied. I come to aid thy wish. Looking aloft to the third circle from the highest, there behold her on the throne, wherein her merit hath placed her. Answering not, mine eyes I riced. And saw her, where aloof she sat, her brow a wreath reflecting of eternal beams. Not from the center of the sea so far, unto the region of the highest thunder, as was my ken from hers. And yet the form came through that medium down, unmixed and pure. O Lady, thou in whom my hopes have rest, who, for my safety, hast not scorned, in hell, to leave the traces of thy footsteps marked. For all mine eyes have seen, I, to thy power and goodness, virtue and grace of slave, thou hast to freedom brought me, and no means for my deliverance apt, hast left untried. Thy liberal bounty still toward me keep, that, when my spirit, which thou madest whole, is loosened from this body, it may find favor with thee. So I my suit preferred. And she, so distant, as appeared, looked down, and smiled, then toward th eternal fountain turned. And thus the senior, holy and revered, that thou at length mayst happily conclude thy voyage, to which end I was dispatched by supplication moved and holy love. Let thy upsoaring vision range, at large, this garden through, for so, by ray divine kindled, thy ken a higher flight shall mount. And from heaven's queen, whom fervent I adore, all gracious aid befriend us, for that I am her own faithful Bernard. Like a white, who haply from Croatia wends to see our Veronica, and the while is shown, hangs over it with never sated gaze. And, all that he hath heard revolving, saith unto himself in thought, and didst thou look e'en thus, O Jesus, my true Lord and God? And was this semblance thine? So gazed I then, adoring, for the charity of him, who musing, in the world that peace enjoyed, stood lively before me. Child of grace. Thus he began, thou shalt not knowledge gain of this glad being, if thine eyes are held still in this depth below. But search around the circles, to the furthest, till thou spy, seated in state, the queen, that of this realm is sovereign. Straight mine eyes I riced, and bright, as, at the birth of morn, the eastern clime, above horizon, where the sun declines. To mine eyes, that upward, as from vale, to mountain sped, at extreme bound, apart, excelled in luster all the front opposed. And as the globe burns ruddiest o'er the wave, that waits the sloping beam, which Phaeton ill knew to guide, and on each part the light diminished fades, intensest in the midst. So burned the peaceful oriflame, and slacked on every side the living flame decayed. And in that midst their sportive pennons waved thousands of angels, in resplendence each distinct and quaint adornment. At their glee and carol, smiled the lovely one of heaven. That joy was in the eyes of all the blessed. Had I a tongue in eloquence as rich as is the coloring in fancy's loom, were all too poor to utter the least part of that enchantment. When he saw mine eyes intent on her, that charmed him, Bernard gazed with so exceeding fondness, as infest ardor into my breast, unfelt before. Canto 32. Freely the sage, though wrapped in musings high, assumed the teacher's part, and mild began. The wound, that Mary clost, she opened first. Who sits so beautiful at Mary's feet? The third in order underneath her, lo! Rachel with Beatrice. Sarah next. Judith, Rebecca, and the gleaner maid. Meek ancestress of him, who sang the songs of sore repentance in his sorrowful mood. All, as I name them, down from deaf to leaf, are in gradation throned on the rose. And from the seventh step, successively, adown the breathing tresses of the floor, still doth the file of Hebrew dames proceed. For these are a partition wall, whereby the sacred stairs are severed, as the faith in Christ divides them. On this part, where blooms each leaf in full maturity, are set, such as in Christ, or ere he came, believed. On th other, where an intersected space yet shows the semicircle void, abide all they, who look to Christ already come. And as Our Lady on her glorious stool, and they who on their stools beneath her sit. This way distinction make, e'en so on his. The mighty Baptist that way marks the line. He who endured the desert and the pains of martyrdom, and for 2 years of hell, yet still continued holy, and beneath Augustine, Francis, Benedict, and the rest, thus far from round to round. So heaven's decree forecasts this garden equally to fill with faith in either view, past or to come. Learn too, that downward from the step, which cleaves midway the twain compartments, none there are who place obtain for merit of their own, but have through others' merit been advanced. On set conditions, spirits all released, ere for themselves they had the power to choose. And, if thou mark and listen to them well, their childish looks and voice declare as much. Here, silent as thou art, I know thy doubt. And gladly will I loose the knot, wherein thy subtle thoughts have bound thee. From this realm excluded, chalice no entrance here may find. No more shall hunger, thirst, or sorrow can. A law immutable hath established all. Nor is there aught thou sayest, that doth not fit exactly, as the finger to the ring. It is not therefore without cause, that these o'er speedy comers to immortal life are different in their shares of excellence. Our sovereign Lord, that settleth this estate in love and in delight so absolute, that wish can dare no further, every soul created in his joyous sight to dwell with grace at pleasure variously endows. And for a proof th effect may well suffice. And t is moreover most expressly marked in Holy Scripture, where the twins are said to have struggled in the womb. Therefore, as grace inweaves the coronet, so every brow weareth its proper hue of orient light. And merely in respect to his prime gift, not in reward of meritorious deed, hath each his several degree assigned. In early times with their own innocence, more was not wanting, than the parents' faith. To save them, those first ages past, behooved that circumcision in the males should imp the flight of innocent wings, but since the day of grace hath come, without baptismal rites, in Christ accomplished, innocence herself must linger yet below. Now raise thy view unto the visage most resembling Christ. For, in her splendor only, shalt thou win the power to look on him. Forthwith I saw such floods of gladness on her visage showered, from holy spirits, winging that profound, that, whatsoever I had yet beheld, had not so much suspended me with wonder, or shown me such similitude of God. And he, who had to her descended, once on earth, now hailed in heaven, and on poised wing, Ave, Maria, gratia plena, sang, to whose sweet anthem all the blissful court, from all parts answering, rang, that holier joy brooded the deep serene Father revered, who deign'st, for me, to quit the pleasant place wherein thou sittest, by eternal lot. Say, who that angel is, that with such glee beholds our Queen, and so enamored glows of her high beauty, that all fire he seems. So I again resorted to the lore of my wise teacher, he, whom Mary's charms embellished, as the sun the morning star. Who thus in answer spake, in him are summed whatever of buxomness and free delight may be in spirit, or in angel, met. And so beseems, for that he bare the palm down unto Mary, when the Son of God vouchsafed to clothe him in terrestrial weeds. Now let thine eyes wait heedful on my words, and note thou of this just and pious realm the chiefest nobles, those highest in bliss. The twain, on each hand next our Empress throned, are as it were two roots unto this rose. He to the left, the parent, whose rash taste proves bitter to his seed. And, on the right, that ancient father of the Holy Church, into whose keeping Christ did give the keys of this sweet flower, near whom behold the seer, that, ere he died, saw all the grievous times of the fair bride, who with the lance and nails was one, and, near unto the other, rests the leader, under whom on manna fed. Ungrateful nation, fickle and perverse. On other part, facing to Peter, lo, where Anna sits, so well content to look on her loved daughter, that with moveless eye she chants the loud Hosanna, while, opposed to the first father of your mortal kind, is Lucia, at whose hest thy lady sped, when on the edge of ruin clost thine eye. But, for the vision hasteneth so an end, here break we off, as the good workman doth, that shapes the cloak according to the cloth, and to the primal love our ken shall rise, that thou mayst penetrate the brightness, far as sight can bear thee. Yet, alas! In sooth, beating thy pennons, thinking to advance, thou backward fall'st. Grace then must first be gained. Her grace, whose might can help thee. Thou in prayer seek her, and, with affection, whilst I sue, attend, and yield me all thy heart. He said. And thus the saintly orison began. Canto 33. O Virgin Mother, daughter of thy Son, created beings all in lowliness, surpassing, as in height, above them all, term by eternal counsel preordained, and nobler of thy nature, so advanced in thee, that its great Maker did not scorn himself, in his own work enclosed to dwell. For in thy womb rekindling shone the love revealed, whose genial influence makes now this flower to germin in eternal peace. Hear thou to us, of charity in love, art, as the noonday torch, and art, beneath, to mortal men, of hope a living spring. So mighty art thou, Lady, and so great, that he who grace desireth, and comes not to thee for aidance, fain would have desire fly without wings. Nor only him who asks thy bounty succors, but doth freely oft forerun the asking, whatsoe'er may be of excellence in creature, pity mild, relenting mercy, large munificence, are all combined in thee. Here kneeleth one, who of all spirits hath reviewed the state, from the world's lowest gap unto this height. Suppliant to thee he kneels, imploring grace for virtue, yet more high to lift his ken toward the bliss supreme. And I, who ne'er coveted sight, more fondly, for myself than now for him, my prayers to thee prefer, and pray they be not scant, that thou wouldst drive each cloud of his mortality away, that on the sovereign pleasure he may gaze. This also I entreat of thee, O Queen, who canst do what thou wilt, that in him thou wouldst after all he hath beheld, preserve affection sound, and human passions quell. Lo! Where, with Beatrice, many a saint stretch their clasped hands, in furtherance of my suit. The eyes, that heave in with love and awe regards. Fixed on the suitor, witnessed, how benign. She looks on pious prayers, then fasten they. On everlasting light, wherein no eye of creature, as may well be thought, so far can travel inward. I, meanwhile, who drew near to the limit, where all wishes end. The ardor of my wish, for so behooved, ended within me. Beckoning smilled the sage, that I should look aloft, but, ere he bade, already of myself aloft I looked. For visual strength, refining more and more, bear me into the ray authentical of sovereign light. Thenceforward, what I saw was not for words to speak, nor memory's self to stand against such outrage on her skill. As one, who from a dream awakened, straight all he hath seen forgets, yet still retains impression of the feeling in his dream. E'en such am I, for all the vision dies, as were away. And yet the sense of sweet that sprang from it, still trickles in my heart. Thus in the sun-thaw is the snow unsealed. Thus in the winds on flitting leaves was lost the Sibyl's sentence. O eternal beam, whose height what reach of mortal thought may soar, yield me again some little particle of what thou then appearedst, give my tongue power, but to leave one sparkle of thy glory unto the race to come, that shall not lose thy triumph holy, if thou waken aught of memory in me, and endure to hear the record sound in this unequal strain. Such keenness from the living ray I met, that, if mine eyes had turned away, methinks I had been lost, but, so emboldened, on I passed, as I remember, till my view hovered the brink of dread infinitude. O grace, unenvying of thy boon, that gav'st boldness to fix so earnestly my ken on everlasting splendor, that I looked, while sight was unconsumed, and, in that depth, saw in one volume clasped of love, whatever the universe unfolds, all properties of substance and of accident, beheld compounded, yet one individual light, the whole. And of such bond methinks I saw the universal form, for that whenever I do but speak of it, my soul dilates beyond her proper self. And, till I speak, one moment seems a longer lethargy than 25 ages had appeared to that emprise, that first made Neptune wonder at Argo's shadow darkening on his flood. With fixed heed, suspense and motionless wondering I gazed, and admiration still was kindled, as I gazed. It may not be that one, who looks upon that light, can turn to other object, willingly, his view. For all the good, that will make covet, there is summed, and all, elsewhere defective found, complete. My tongue shall utter now, no more e'en what remembrance keeps, than could the babe's that yet is moistened at his mother's breast. Not that the semblance of the living light was changed, that ever as at first remained, but that my vision quickening, in that soul appearance, still new miracles descried, and toiled me with the change. In that abyss of radiance, clear and lofty, seemed methought 3 orbs of triple hue clipped in one bound, and, from another, one reflected seemed as rainbow is from rainbow, and the third seemed fire, breathed equally from both. O speech, how feeble and how faint art thou, to give conception birth! Yet this to what I saw is less than little. O eternal light, soul in thyself that dwellst, and of thyself soul understood, past, present, or to come, thou smiledst on that circling, which in thee seemed as reflected splendor, while I mused. For I therein, methought, in its own hue, beheld our image painted, steadfastly. I therefore pored upon the view, as one who veered in geometric lore, would fain measure the circle, and, though pondering long and deeply, that beginning, which he needs, finds not. E'en such was I, intent to scan the novel wonder, and trace out the form, how to the circle fitted, and therein how placked, but the flight was not for my wing. Had not a flash darted athwart my mind, and in the spleen unfolded what it sought. Here vigor failed the towering fantasy, but yet the will rolled onward, like a wheel, in even motion, by the love impelled, that moves the sun in heaven and all the stars.